In this devlog, I'm going to go over the process of making my not Mars Frogger game that I made. For my class, I had to make a game, and so I decided to make a Frogger game but make it Mars themed. I'm going to go over the process of developing this game. So on day one, I basically just spent the day deciding on the theme, the art, and how the core mechanics of the game would work, just so I could get a good idea and plan for the game, so that I wouldn't have to go back afterwards and start thinking about how am I going to do player movement, or how am I going to design my characters. Then on day two, I wasn't at school that day, but I did work on the graphics for the game, as well as making the art for my player, rovers, drones, and the road that the rovers would drive on. Then on day three, it was probably one of my most productive days, and I spent most of the day getting the player movement working, as well as the movement for the rovers and drones. I also started putting the world together that day, and that was the first day I started to get a feel for how the world was, like, size-based. Throughout the development, I did change the size of the world a bit, but that was mostly it. Then on day 4, I spent most of the day working on bugs with the movement code, as well as starting to work on the death mechanic. Then on day 5, I spent the day working on animation for the code, animation and code for my timer, as well as finishing the code for my death mechanic, so that when you collide with rovers, you would die and respawn at the beginning. Then on day 6, that was the third last day of development, so I knew that I had to start wrapping up the class, or start wrapping up my design for the game, and finish up all the core mechanics. So I spent the day working on points, as well as a high score save manager, and then I started working on code for my drones, so that when you jumped on the drones, you would move along with the drones, and then you could jump from drone to drone. On day 7, I spent the entire day working on the movement, or the code for the drones. It was pretty easy to get it so you could move with the drones. I just could never, for this project, I ran out of time, and could never get the code working so that if you jumped off the drones into the pit, you would die. So with the end of the game, with the end product, you could just run across the pit and not actually need to go on the drones. On day 8, I spent the day finishing up all the finishing touches, which was the main menu, windscreen, and online leaderboard. But the online leaderboard I was not able to get working because the package I used from the package manager wasn't working with my version of Unity. The day after the project was due, I did find out that there was an update that came out that day that I'm pretty sure would fix the issues I was having with the leaderboard, but that was unfortunately not able to be put into the game because the update came the day after the project was due. With the main menu, I added buttons so you could quit the game as well as enter the game, and I also added 2 buttons in the bottom right corner of my screen that you can click on, and they bring you to my GitHub and YouTube pages for all of my projects that I work on. My final result for the game was a fully working Frogger game, except for the fact that you can run across the pits. The goal of the game is basically to get to the end of the map 3 times and collect all 3 flags, and in the fastest time, and then you win the game. And yeah, so that's the end of my devlog. Peace.